leadership. To my right is Trustees Chair Gary Bittner. To his right is our Council Chair Joyce Barone. To her right is our lay leader Rosetta DeBose. And Rosetta's right is our SPR Chair Harry Cervenka. You've been hearing and participating in a couple of our town halls about an exciting new ministry model that we are exploring this summer. It's called the Simplified Accountability Leadership Structure. We began this conversation about this time last year and picked it back up earlier this summer as we began looking at where God is leading us in this next season of ministry and how we might best create efficiency and faithfulness to the administrative work of the church. Out of those conversations has grown an opportunity to talk more specifically about the Simplified Accountability Model. This model is approved by our Arkansas Conference. It is a model that the Book of Discipline gives leeway for and good structure for. It is a model that is in good use by many churches around our conference right now, and we're hearing good success stories from those churches that have utilized this new model of ministry. We're going to answer a few questions today and just share a little conversation. We hope that you find this helpful this afternoon as we bring this to you. I want to begin with simply asking our council chair, Joyce, a very simple question. As council chair and in working with all of our committees and leading our council, tell me why you believe this is the right time for Village United Methodist to consider the simplified model.
Well, first off, I think it's one of the things that has come up is 24 people have dropped off committees, and 24 people is a lot of people. I think people are tired of doing 3-year commitments, and I don't blame them for thinking that. I also think that we will be able to do things quicker if we get this structure in place, because we will have one meeting a month and then go about our business. It also lets other people in the congregation to be able to do projects that we do with a short-term commitment, maybe 1 week, maybe 1 month, and not have to be on a committee for 3 years.
So one meeting a month sounds pretty good.
It sounds really good.
And that gives good opportunity to communicate with the congregation and to share information. And
yes.
How will we invite the congregation to participate or share ideas or thoughts or feedback?
Membership in our church are allowed to come to the meetings. They can sit, they can listen, they can raise their hand, they can ask questions, and if there's an idea, if they're not at the meeting, they can get anybody who's on the leadership team to talk to them and say, what do you think about this idea? Can you put this in? Maybe we'll have a box for people to put ideas in, so they can say, I was thinking maybe we could do a book drive.
Okay.
Drop it in there and take it out, and we can discuss it at our meeting.
Good. So a way to really incorporate more people
Yes.
at the table is what I'm hearing. Rosetta serves as our lay leader. Our lay leader sits in on a large number of meetings each month. You sit in as the congregational liaison to every committee and every group that meets as part of our church structure. I'm kind of curious, what excites you most about the simplified model?
The simplified model allows for decisions to be made by a team of members, the final decision, rather than made by committee, moving to the next committee, moving to the next committee, and finally moving to the team. The simplified version eliminates that portion. It goes directly to the administrative team. Plus, it allows a team to make the decisions that are managing the church, and our main goal is not managing the church. Our main goal is making disciples for Jesus. It allows the membership to be able to participate more in that area, reaching out to the church as a whole to go out and make disciples.
Great. One of the conversations that we've shared in the town halls, one of the bullet points on the PowerPoint spoke about how communication often is siloed. I've gotten a lot of comments since we started town halls last week. What did you mean by that? What does it mean that communication is siloed? And when we have individual groups that are charged with specific tasks, staff parish and personnel and trustees with building and grounds and finance with budget, oftentimes those committees are invited to refer and or recommend a decision to another committee, which may either forward it to the council or bounce it back to the originating committee. And sometimes our communication becomes siloed just within that committee. And so what I'm hearing you say is it kind of helps us remove that sense of siloing to bring everybody to the table at the same time.
As a lay leader, I hear the same arguments from all the groups where the decision's made in the group, but then it has to go to the council, which this would become the team.
Right.
And I've heard all the stuff over and over because finance may have an issue, goes to SPR, and I'm at both of those meetings, and then and then finally it gets to the decision-making group, which is it starts with the simplified version, rather than end with this.
Good, good. So I have Harry and Gary here, who are chairs of some of the most important committees in the work of the church. They stay busy. We have 10 staff members that we oversee the work and employment for, as well as annual evaluations. And we have a large building and our grounds that are in constant need of attention and work. One of the questions that has been raised more than once now is it seems like you have so much work going on. How would this work if we began to simplify and we rolled all of these administrative teams into one place? So Harry, how do you see the work of your committee functioning in this new model?
Well, I think any change, the challenge is adapting to the change. And when I first saw this structure, I had questions. Many questions have come up at our previous meetings with the congregation. But the more you get into this, you really see the simplification of it and how it will work for all of us in a much more efficient way. And I think once we convert over to this, we'll all agree that this is something we've needed.
Okay. What about from the perspective of trustees?
Well, trustees has a great deal of work to do in our grounds maintenance, our insurance, maintenance of our building, so forth, which involves finance to a great deal. I have 9 people on the trustees committee. There's 9 people on finance. There's 9 people on SPR. Right there is 27 people we've got in these 3 different committees. The new way is going to be a lot more efficient and a lot and further productivity, in that we will still have 9 to 14 people on each committee, but they're going to be the same people. I will sit on the committee as a trustee chair, but all the people on this board will be my trustee committee. If Harry is SPR chair, he'll sit there and all those people will be his SPR committee. So all the people know what's going on all the time. The same story filters into the congregation from one source, and everybody has the same information at the same time. And it eliminates me taking my recommendations from the trustees over to finance, and then the finance taking it to council, and then council giving it back to me. This all happens in one meeting. So I see the function of the committees kind of going on much the same as they are now, but in a more productive and efficient manner. Much more efficient than it's been.
Good, good. So when you look at some of the webinars for the Simplified Accountability Model, and I see Joyce brought her Mission Possible book, the third edition. I'm still working through the first edition. I'm waiting on my third to show up. There are 3 steps that we go through as we are working through this process of transition. And they talk a great deal about the discerning stage and the equipping stage and the implementing stage. The discerning stage, we spent some time in last fall with the Committee on Lay Leadership, just brainstorming and talking through why something like this would be important. What would we want to gain? What are we wanting to accomplish here? And the simple answer, as Rosetta mentioned earlier, is to help us put that priority in making disciples for Jesus Christ and streamlining the approach for governance within the church. The equipping stage would be happening this fall as our nominations then, if we approve this model, as our nominations begin to put the framework to the structure for the simplified approach. And if all of that goes to fruition, then January 1, we would be ready to implement that third stage of implementation. Kay and Blake, who lead our webinars, often remind us that implementing stage is a full year stage. Mm-hmm. So the idea is that next year would be a learning year for all of us as we are shifting and adjusting, as we are training and equipping lay leadership. As you think about implementation and implementing something, implementing in the church is always a difficult task. What do you think will be the biggest challenge to implementing this model once we get, assuming that we approve this model at a charge conference, and we begin with the simplified approach in January? What do you see as our greatest challenge? I'll start with Harry, and I'm just kind of curious as to how all 4 of you would answer that.
Well, I think the challenge, and as we have now, is the volunteers. The church is going to have volunteers to fill many of these positions, and I just see that as a challenge, of the willingness to get involved in one of these committees and to do the work of the church.
Okay.
And I think the biggest thing is going to be change. People are really hesitant about anything that changes because they're very comfortable with that's always the way we've done it.
Yes.
It doesn't matter whether it's this or anything that you hear, or you only have a few people making all the decisions, which is not true, but the perception is that it's true. Final decisions are made by the council, which is basically the same as the simplified.
Same number of people.
Same number of people. It's just that you don't go through all those different committees to get to that point. And that's going to be hard for those people who think you have to start here. And as I was telling you, I talked with a person at another church who has this, and they call what we're talking about a core group. And then they talk about the rest of the people who may have some input as being, I gave you that term, what is it?
Was that the task forces?
Task force.
Yeah.
That you have task force to do the work, then it's brought to the core. Right. So you're not eliminating people, you're eliminating steps.
I think the elimination is really going to be in 3-year commitments. Mm-hmm. Where task forces, people can come and go more short term.
Right, for projects or issues or whatever comes up. You still got input from people. It's just the final decision is made by the core group or the team or whatever you want to call it. Which is what happens now, is just at a different point.
Right. Joyce, what do you think the biggest challenge will be?
I agree with Rosetta. In our age bracket, people don't like change, period. So the way we need to work on this is so that every member understands why we want to do this and how we think it will work. Because right now, if the leadership board has 14 people and our council has 15, it's one person different. But we're not going to 5 and 6 meetings, and we're not passing it from one to the other. We make the decision right there. And as you said, the meeting can be an hour and a half, it can be 2 hours, but we'll get everything done then. Which
Okay.
means it frees more people up to go and do things. As I said before, if we do, like we used to do fellowship dinners, we don't have to have a team. We ask people if they'd like to help, and that's it. It's not, well, you do this, they get together, they talk about it, we have the fellowship meal. And we don't have to go through everything every single time. We know what we have to do. And we need to get busy. As soon as we are able, we need to start telling people it's time to get into doing the ministry of the church.
Absolutely.
Chris, the fellowship committee is a classic example of what the new structure is already doing in the now ministry.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yes.
Because the fellowship committee is a non-existing committee.
Yes,
But they function as a committee because those are people that want to do the fellowship, so they come and do it anyway, even though they're not even part of the worship committee or the nurturing committee or the outreach committee.
correct.
The irony there, we haven't nominated someone to the
Right.
to the
It's
fellowship
not,
committee
it's a
5 years,
non-existent. It's a non-existent.
and it's one of the
church
strongest groups we have.
Yes,
Yes, pre-pandemic anyway.
And that goes back to the point I was trying to make about the willingness to do the work,
Right.
and that's the key.
Yeah. Gary, what do you see as our biggest challenges?
Well, they kind of stole a lot of my fire. Change, any change in any way throws people off right at first. So it's a change, but I think there's got to be, I got 2 areas I think that mindset, people that go on to the leadership board, which has been what you would call our church council, they have to change their mindset in that they are actually on finance, SPR, trustees, and all the now committees. So we take up this business, they have to change their mindset that I'm on SPR right now, and that's what we're talking about. And then in the final end, now I'm part of the leadership board, we're gonna vote on what that SPR committee just decided. So there's a little bit of a mind shift that has to go on, and people have to learn. The second mind shift, I think, is going to be about what are we doing? What's going on here? I'll just take a step back for a minute, and everybody kind of knows me, but I'm an eye doctor. So my business is taking care of the health of people's eyes. But in my business, I had to take care of the finances of my practice. I had a staff to take care of. I had building insurance. I had building maintenance. I had to take care of all of those things besides doing the business of my practice. So I had to get those things done and get those things done in an efficient manner, and they get on to business. And everybody here has been in business, and they understand what I'm talking about. Well, the business of the church is not maintaining the grounds, and the business of the church is not watching over your staff, and the business of the church is not discussing our financial situation. The business of the church, as Rosetta said, is making disciples of Jesus Christ, Christ's Great Commission. This is going to free up not only time, because we're making everything more efficient, we're all coming together and making our decisions on those non-business items quickly, getting them out of the way. In the past, our council meetings were 80-90% spent on trustees, staff, parish, and finance, and we never talked about the now committees, and the now committees are the business of our church. They're the ones that are doing the business of making disciples of Christ. So in the end, this is going to free up more people to be on those committees, more people to go out and do that work, and it's going to bring the entire focus, I hope, of our congregation into doing that rather than the administrative work. We're going to get that out of the way and get on with what we're supposed to do. To me, that's our challenge, is getting the mindset of our congregation pointed in a different direction.
Good,
That's where I'm
good.
at.
Speaking of nurture, outreach, and witness, a common question that is coming up is what happens with nurture, outreach, and witness in this new model? And as we're looking at it and exploring that, those ministry areas will be just that, ministry areas. They'll no longer be formal committees that we are nominating and electing individuals to serve in, but we will have a chairperson and a vice chair who is overseeing nurture, outreach, and witness, all three of whom will serve on this new board if we choose to go in this direction. The beauty to that is you've spoken some about freeing people up to do ministry rather than sit in committee meetings. So how do we generate that? How do we communicate that? And I remind you of our old skills and interest brochures, those inventories. They really will form the nucleus of how this works. You get to tell us where you're interested in serving in the life of the church. You get to make that decision of when and how you serve based on your time and your energies and the spiritual gifts that you possess. Rather than us take a name and try to plug it into a committee, we invite you then to serve in the way that God has invited you. There will be a little more a database kind of work to that in maintaining and inviting people in, but it will be a much more grassroots, congregation-wide kind of initiative. So nurture, outreach, and witness continues to be the primary focus of who we are as a church community. I shared with some folks the other day, and one of them said, well, can you show me that in the discipline? I love it when people ask me questions like that, and I did. I showed them in the discipline. When under the area of, I think it's paragraph 243, if I remember right, under the area of ministries of the local church, our top priority is not in administration or in committees. Those are a distant fourth and fifth. Our top priority is implementing a plan for the nurture, outreach, and witness ministries of the local church. It's all about making disciples and reaching out and helping to make that difference. So I like that language of freeing people up to be able to serve in a number of ways across the board in our church, in our community, and beyond in ministry in the church. So what would you say, a question that I wrote down here, and I'll let just any one of you answer it that wants to answer it, because we don't need 4 answers to this one. What would you say to those folks who wonder if this simplified model cuts people out of leadership work? Anybody want to take a...
I would say it does not cut anyone out of actually functioning or inputting to the leadership. It allows them to do it in a different way.
Okay.
Not necessarily, you have to be on the board or whatever. The bulk of the people in the church aren't on the board anyway.
Right.
It just allows it to happen in a different way.
So it sounds like a bit of a mindset shift again.
Yeah, again.
And I would say it depends on your definition of leadership.
That too.
If you define leadership as the chairs of committees,
Or being in charge.
it will be the exact same leadership that we have now. If you define leadership as being on a committee, then right now, we're having trouble filling those committee assignments. People are backing away from taking those posts to begin with. So we're having trouble finding those people. But our board, when it meets, is going to be open to everyone to come there. And I'm sure that it's going to turn out like Washington, D.C., and there'll be a lot of lobbying going on. Even though the lobbyists can't vote, the leaders can. So you're going to get your input one way or the other, and the nice thing is there's going to be one meeting that you can attend and find out everything you want to know once a month.
Everything out there.
And you can have your input with all the people that are sitting on that board.
And my answer to someone that asked that question is step forward. We have a place for you.
Yes, yes.
Amen.
Yes,
Step forward.
yes, amen.
A final question, because I lay awake thinking about this at night, and I have been for 19 months now. This pandemic has really changed how we live completely. It has certainly changed our sense of momentum. We had some great momentum going pre-COVID that really ground to a halt this past year. Now we're trying to emerge, and we're dealing with some of the surges, and we're working to kind of rebuild some of that momentum and grow as a church body again. And I don't know that there's a magic bullet of sorts that can solve all of the problems here, but as we think about this simplified accountability model, I'm just curious as to your thoughts. Like I say, I've been thinking about it for nights, for months on end. Do you think this would help or hinder? What do you see is needed most as we think about building our momentum and moving forward?
I think that anything that's new and changes to something new gives people a new vitality and a new energy sometimes. So
Okay.
moving to something like this that's new and points us in another direction, hopefully will give people a new energy and say, I really want to get in on that. And back to what I was saying a while ago, if we can change the mindset of our congregation into what we want to do in the true business of the church, which is not administration, it's the now committees and going out into our communities and creating disciples for Jesus Christ, that should create an energy and a vitality to really start pushing things forward, I hope. COVID or no COVID, that's what we're here for.
Okay. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a very exciting time because it's change. We're looking at new ways of doing things. And when you're changing stuff like that, you get excited. This has some things that we haven't done before, and it's a time for us to do something now, okay? We're going through the pandemic, we're still going through it, but we can do things. There are things we can do.
Right.
And this gives us the opportunity to access many more people than we do now.
That is true. So much of what we are doing in this last year, we really owe to the pandemic.
Yeah.
Yes.
With the use of technology and online worship and online discipleship opportunities and even more than that. So our focus here is going to be making disciples, prioritizing our ministry of nurture, which is caring for the congregation, outreach, which is caring for our community, and witness, which really speaks to discipleship and how we are called to grow in our relationship and experience with Christ Jesus.
And I'd like to say that we have experience in those three. You brought that to us in 2018. And
Yeah.
so our committees have a basis of how to do it. We just need more people to get involved and to get it done.
And get it done.
Yep, get her done.
Absolutely.
I think once you get past the mind saying, I don't like change, people get away from what they call the same old, same old, same old. And they get encouraged, especially if they see results, that they can say, oh, I always think about Feed the Funnel.
Oh, that was awesome.
You know, when you brought that, or whoever brought that program to the church, you had no idea that the turnout of people who wanted to participate in that would be to the degree that,
Absolutely.
you know, that we were, I mean, we superseded what our expectations were initially.
And that was on my Facebook memories yesterday.
Oh, that's cool.
Yesterday was the date that we did that. 176 people came together that morning, and I was worried that we wouldn't get 70.
I know.
But we put that out there, we invited people to do something that made a difference.
That make a
And
difference.
something that counted. And they just, I was in awe. I mean, I looked at that picture in my memories last night, and I mean, it just, my heart just welled up that, you know, we're gonna get back to that one day. We're gonna get there again, but what a joy that was.
And that's the kind of thing that the church needs to be
Yes.
focusing on anyway. Not necessarily just feed the funnel, but those outreach
Right.
and witness and now things that people can get in and get right down to what we're really supposed to be about.
That was also like what happened with Food to Mountain Pine. The food just kept
It just
coming
kept
in
coming.
and coming in, and what an awesome thing to deliver it and see how happy they were and
Yeah.
how excited. And I thought, we have to keep doing that. We just have to
Yeah.
keep doing that because people are excited to bring the food. And
Right.
that's doing ministry.
I think that these two examples are an example of what I'm talking about, of changing mindset to what the important function of the church is. And the fact that our now committees being, I think, the committees that should be in the forefront of everything are not just gonna have a list of people on their committee that are plugged in there, and perhaps whatever they're doing, half of those people aren't interested in doing at that time. I foresee the now committee chairs actually finding ways to post their projects and what they're gonna do. And you're gonna find that there's gonna be 170 people sign up to do this, and that's on nurture, and there are gonna be 150 signing up to do this, that's on outreach, because they're interested in doing that. You're gonna have a lot more participation, I hope, because there's gonna be interest from people in certain things that are gonna be done. And hopefully that's gonna really push our agenda forward.
And they won't feel like, I can't do it because I'm not on the committee.
Right.
Right,
Right.
right. Listen, I want to thank you all for joining me today and answering these questions and letting me put you on the spot here along the way. I appreciate you greatly. You make my job so much easier as the pastor when I can work alongside such caring and compassionate folks who obviously love your church.